Even though most companies didn't plan for economy drags to a stop, a pandemic shows how important scenario planning is. Scenario planning is a way for a business to take control of an uncertain world by making assumptions about the future and planning how the business will react. By making sure everyone in the organization knows what could happen, leaders may be able to spot early signs of problems and act accordingly. Scenario planning documents are very helpful when the worst case scenario happens because they show different possible outcomes and list steps that can be taken right away to limit damage. Plans are also helpful for the best possible outcome. For example, what if a product goes viral and demand jumps 300% overnight? What if an unexpected chance to buy something comes up? Are you all set? Scenario plans tell a story with many possible endings. To write the story, you need to have a clear set of assumptions about how business might work and what will happen as a result. What does it mean to plan for different possible results? Scenario planning helps businesses find a range of possible outcomes and estimates of their effects, evaluate possible responses, and plan for both good and bad outcomes. Scenario planning is used for more than just making plans for money. It is an integrated way to deal with uncertainty that includes things like estimating cash flow and making predictions about future earnings. But it's more than just a way to find risks and plan for growth and how to deal with them. Scenario planning is also about imagining different futures for an organization based on assumptions about the forces that drive the market, some of which are good and some of which are bad. Why is planning for different possible outcomes so important? Scenario planning can give leaders an advantage by letting them act quickly and decisively. No one has to scramble in the middle of a crisis because a situation has been thought through and actions have been written down. Scenario planning also helps executives and boards of directors make better non-emergency decisions by giving them more information about plans, budgets, and forecasts, and by giving them a clearer picture of what drives business growth and what the possible effects of future events could be. What are the pros and cons of planning for what might happen? For scenario planning to be done well, it takes time, work, and money. Should you say something? Scenario planning has benefits. It will help executives figure out what would happen if different things could happen. Teams in charge of finances, operations, and other areas can come up with initial answers. Part of it is managing what people know. By having important employees take part, the company can get their ideas and thoughts. If these people can't be reached during a real disaster, the company can rely on written records. Cons: planning for different possible outcomes is a job that could be very big. It can take a long time to collect data and figure out what the main factors are. It can take months to make plans for a big business. Things that change plans can happen very quickly. This means that planning scenarios needs to be an ongoing process that is always updated as conditions and assumptions change. We recommend that every company do at least some basic scenario planning, even if it's part of a business continuity exercise. The process is valuable in and of itself. When you're ready to start, you need to choose a format. Different ways to plan for what could happen. Quantitative scenarios. There are financial models that can show how the model will work both in the best and worst case. Changes can be made quickly to a small number of variables or factors in these models. With the help of quantitative scenarios, business forecasts for the whole year can also be made. These models assume that important variables are known and that their relationships are set. Operational scenarios. Planning for what could go wrong is one of the most common kinds of scenario planning that an organization does on its own. In operational scenarios, the results of an event are looked at right away. The scenario then shows how the strategy will work in the short term. Normative scenarios. These talk about an end state that is wanted or could happen. Setting goals is more important than planning in these situations. The vision of a company has nothing to do with these goals. Instead, they are more about how the company wants to run in the future. Normal scenarios are often used with other types of scenario planning because they show a summary of changes and a list of things that are supposed to happen. Strategic management scenarios. Basically, these are stories about how people use products and services. They don't say much about the company or industry. These are often the hardest scenarios for business leaders to come up with because they require a broad view of the industry, the economy, and the world. On the plus side, they give planners the freedom to come up with ideas and a lot of different ways to tell a story. Some businesses hire people who call themselves analysts or futurists to help them. Most of the time, macroeconomic expectations are used with scenario planning to help the CFO set short-term goals for the company and make sure everyone has the same expectations. Even though every industry and business is different, scenario planning is still based on the same basic ideas. To show this, think about how a software company and a wholesale distributor, neither of which exists, would handle scenario planning during the COVID-19 pandemic. Gimblue Software is a young business software company that is Company 1. Before the pandemic, the population was steadily growing. The leadership team hadn't thought about what could go wrong, but the CFO had lived through both the dot-com bubble and the Great Recession and was ready to act quickly to protect Gimblue's runway. Company 2. Before the pandemic, Tar Heel Direct's CFO had made 3 plans based on the number of orders. There were green, yellow, and red marks on these plans. Each scenario had a different list of things to do to make things better, and the number of orders was used to tell when it was time to do each action sequence. But because of the retail freefall, Tar Heel Direct was in the red, which is the worst case scenario, in just a few weeks. The two businesses asked themselves, what are we trying to figure out? How far ahead do we want to try to guess? What are the most important things happening outside of our control that could change our situations? What are the most important things we have to deal with on the inside? What could go wrong? Do we have the right information, tools, time, and skills to make and update scenario plans? The scenarios in Tar Heel Direct depend on how many orders there are and how quickly they can be filled. Because the bad effects of the pandemic happened so quickly, the company decided to set goals every 30 days to prepare for accounts receivable being late and retailers not being able to buy as much of their products. Most customers with stores quickly stopped ordering it because infection rates and lockdown orders have a direct effect on sales. Inside, Tar Heel Direct has made sure that its employees are safe. Warehouse teams are only working at about 60% of their capacity because people are staying away from each other and doing more to keep things clean. Customers and sellers are in a similar situation. Even though it doesn't affect them as much as it does stores, it still does. Some shipments of goods will be late, and some suppliers may only be able to give a small amount of what they usually do. Leaders at Tar Heel are in close contact with both suppliers and customers, and the company keeps an eye on government data and industry reports to try to stay ahead of trends. But the future of retail is uncertain, so the company may need to find other ways to make money.